So they're living with this regret of like, man, I didn't give it everything I had there in this dark depression because they didn't give it their all. And so even people that are in sports, how you transition well isn't just don't put all your eggs in one basket. No, it's actually give it everything you got while you're there so that when you transition, you feel like I poured it all out.
Today we have Darryll Stinson, self-described the sexiest man alive. I'm just joking. He's like, what? Welcome to the Matthews Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Matthews, and today's guest is someone whose story, voice, and vision are transforming lives around the world, Darryll Stinson. Darryll is a visionary speaker, best-selling author, philanthropist, and founder of multiple impact-driven ventures, including Second Chance Athletes, and seeding greatness. Second chance athlete. Do I get a second chance in football? Is this true?
A second chance to succeed in life without the demands of sports.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Once ranked as the top 100 football and basketball player, Darryll's athletic career came to a tragic halt due to injury and addiction, ushering in a dark season of depression, identity loss, and multiple suicide attempts. But what followed was a radical transformation. Darryll found healing through faith, storytelling, and vulnerability. He rebuilt his life with a system not just for success, but for self-care. And he's now teaching others how to do the same. Today, we're diving into how Darryll is using vulnerability as a superpower, why your story might just be your greatest asset, and how you can lead a purpose-driven life no matter what obstacles lie ahead. Before we start, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs a little dose of inspirational, practical wisdom. Darryll Stinson, welcome to the podcast.
Let's get it, bro.
It's good to see you again.
I know, man. I made a connection at the office hours.
Yeah, so for the audience, we were in Vegas a couple weeks ago. David Meltzer, he was doing the office hours.
Yep.
Is it a podcast, a TV show?
It's a television show.
Television show?
Yeah.
Man,
I'm glad that you don't know that. Just showing up, doing stuff.
I'm the labor here. Yeah. Allison tells me, hey, this is where you're going.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to do. And you shut the F up. You don't ask any questions. So all of a sudden, this is like generally how it works here.
Yeah.
And I just say, Zach, just make sure I look good. I'm sitting in a chair and there's four intimidating people like up on this booth. It was like 6 feet elevated.
I know, dude.
And just looking down on me. And they gave me a prep sheet about 15 minutes before. This is how much prep I had.
I know.
And one of the four said football athlete Darryll. I was like, oh, I'm gonna bro out with this guy. Yeah. And so he was kind of my easy mark to get him to like me.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
And I did.
Well, I tailored my answers to you. It was all about like life after football and how do you pivot when you don't achieve your dreams. And I felt like you were kind of giving me that head nod.
Oh yeah.
And I said, oh, this is easy money.
Yeah.
Easy money.
Yeah.
All right. What is that? Is that like that type of media, communication platforms, podcasts, TV shows, speeches? That's takes up a lot of your day, right?
It does, man. I love this more. I love face-to-face. I love going deep. In our podcast, I want to have it be 3 hours. I want to have the same guests back over and over again because I just believe like a lot of podcasts, like you'll get an hour with somebody and then it's like, you basically get the same feel that they give on every other podcast. But then you get like hour 2, hour 3, and it's like, now we're getting some new stuff. Now we're getting some stuff, some angles that, we haven't touched on yet. So I just love the deep connected stuff. But yeah, I do it all.
I feel you there. And Zach, I'm blame you. I'm always like, we were driving in LA 2 weeks ago. I said, look, you're not going to like this, but if I really was able to do this the way I want it, like it'd be 3-4 hours.
Totally.
But he's always like, audience will drop off after 45 minutes.
Depends on how engaging the combo is.
Oh, so yeah, see, agency. I need to do a better job.
I mean, what was it? Shannon Sharp and Cat Williams how long was that thing? That was 2 hours and 2.5 hours. And it was definitely the most watched one.
Yeah, that's a high bar for me to hit, is to have the one-liner Shannon Sharp comes up with. I really would have to make up some stuff.
I can help you with that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Speaking of helping people,
speak,
talk, give speeches. Like, share with the audience, what do you do?
I help people to grow their movements with their message, right? Mm-hmm. So your movement is what you care about, your cause, your business. Your message is the thing that fuels it. So it doesn't matter how large of a company you are, how small of a company you are, the growth of your movement is fueled by your message, your ability to just convey it, to articulate it, but also to live it. because I believe the loudest message that we speak is not with our words, but with our life.
What if someone said, Darryll, that's awesome, but like, I don't really have a message.
Oh, welcome to the club, right? Everyone feels that way. And it's just not true. It's, you know what I do? I do this example, okay? I often just talk it through instead of like physically bring my daughter on stage. But I'll say, okay, imagine I brought my daughter on stage and I got 3 daughters. So they're all cute, they're young, they're 11 and younger. I bring them on stage and say, do you think she has a story to tell? Everybody goes, yeah, of course, awesome. Okay, at what age will she stop having a story to tell? Nobody responds because she's not an age where it won't matter. And then I go, well, tell me, at what age did you tell yourself that you didn't have a story to tell? And they get it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I made this too complicated. It's just about the uniqueness of this individual. It's their perspective on life. It's always, you can always help the former version of yourself. So I think when people think that they don't have the story to tell, what they're actually doing is they're trying to compare their story to other people's story and say, well, their story's worse than mine. Their trauma's worse. What they've been through is way worse. And I kind of grew up, I had it bad, but not that bad. Or, man, I've had success, but it's not a multi-billionaire. And so it's not really that impressive. And so it's just comparison syndrome versus, hey, do you remember the former version of yourself that wanted help, that wanted advice, that wanted guidance? Do you think that out of the billion of people that are on the planet, like, do you think that there might be a couple that could benefit from hearing from your journey?
Do you think that's the biggest objection to people developing a story, telling their story, is that they just feel like they don't have one, or are there other layers to what's keeping them from developing this skill?
Oh, there's a lot of layers, right? But yeah, that's the primary one, is that they don't feel like they have a story because it's not impressive enough or traumatic enough compared to other people's stories.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm hearing you talk, and of course I naturally apply it to my life, my profession, and thinking about sales, commercial real estate, but this could be any sales. There's so much of sales is, yeah, you have to have acuity in the product. You have to have some expertise, and there is the reality, but so much of sales is building a relationship. And one of the best ways to build a relationship, maybe the best, is storytelling and really getting an owner, in this case of real estate, to kind of intimately like feel like they know you. And you do that through telling your story. And it's a great point. I've never thought about that. Even a 22-year-old who kind of is like, yeah, I grew up tough, not that tough. I've done some things, not that much. It's like, well, I don't really have a story to tell. It's like, but it's unique. It's your story. The 11-year-old thing, that's a powerful kind of, I don't know if it's an analogy, but like there's a symbolism there.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just gets all the excuses out the way.
So were you always gifted with the ability to tell stories? Is it called like an orator? Were you always just this dynamic person who's like, hey, everybody,
listen to this.
Listen.
We got the dinner table jokes.
Here's a little story that no, go ahead.
No, I would say yes and no. I do feel like I was born with a calling and a gift. I really do. But I didn't use it. I actually suppressed it for a good chunk of my life. And so, what you don't use, you often lose, right? And so it was very underdeveloped. It was buried beneath layers of insecurity. My first speaking engagement, I actually wrote it out word for word, read it into a recording device, and then strung headphones up through my jacket, left one earphone in to give the audience the appearance that I just forgot to take both out. And then I hit play on the recorder and started to recite the things that was on the recorder.
How did that go?
Terrible.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I talk a lot faster than I read, so I got off sync with the recording. And I literally started to repeat multiple sentences.
You got to be like Taylor Swift or Mariah Carey, just like, hey, I have no volume in my earphones. You ever seen them like just lose it on someone?
I know.
Because they're always like,
totally. Worst part about that story, it was in front of an All-American athlete. And then the second worst part is my best friend at the time was in the room. He's in the back completely dying of laughter.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's what friends are for.
Exactly. Like humanize the moment, right? But it was embarrassing. And I used to be so insecure to speak that you never do like icebreakers like, hey, what's your name and where are you from? Like that thing. I used to skip and fake like I had to go to the bathroom so they wouldn't count on me.
Why did whatever organization or group asked you to speak in the first place, what was it about you that they said, man, we'd love to hear this guy's story?
Well, it was an athletic youth event that his name was Brian Pruitt. He was an All-American running back, and didn't go pro because he had a pinched nerve in his neck, but he's really good. And he was mentoring youth, and he invited me to speak because he saw my kind of rise and fall as an athlete. He basically saw the journey take place. He knew I was like going somewhere, and he was like, what happened to this guy? And found out that I had, survived a suicide attempt, and was like, man, you really got to pour into these youth, man. I would love for you to come. And I was just like, don't you got other people who are like actually do this? But I just knew that I was called to do it. So I said yes. And, embarrassed myself.
So you would start by saying, hey, I was kind of born with a gift, but I suppressed it, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually it kind of came back to life. Let's talk about, if you don't mind spending, some time, because it's so relevant to who you are and what you do today. Your childhood, and ultimately, if someone's listening, like, what do you mean? Why do you suppress it? And you grew up in Michigan, Jackson, Michigan.
Jacktown, baby. Home of Tony Dungy. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
TD, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good man, good coach. Even great coach, even greater person.
Yeah,
Tony Dungy. What was childhood like for you growing up?
Man.
And maybe lead that into why would you suppress your storytelling?
Totally, man. Childhood. Mom and dad weren't together. Mom was I believe a senior in high school. Dad was a freshman in college when they had me. They had lost a child right before me, right after he was born, my brother, D'Antoine. And so, my mother was really grieving that. So she was super overprotective of me because she just didn't want to lose me like she lost her first child. I actually had some of the same health complications as him, so it was really scary. And dad was just chasing the dream. He would come around, poke around, but he was in college about to go pro. And mom,
athlete.
Yep, football player.
Football player.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, I just assume everyone knows, but that's not true. Yeah, so my dad was a football player. Yeah, he played at Central Michigan just like I did.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I went there too. And so because dad was kind of not like super active and mom was like hyper protective, she was really concerned that I was going to grow up and not be tough enough because dad was like kind of like actively involved or more, mentoring me in that way.
Sure.
And so she was overly kind of aggressive. And that generation was like that. So anytime I would cry and like cry too much, she would say, boy, you better shut up or and she'll raise her hand and I'll give you something to cry about. And that caused me to like believe that my emotions weren't safe to express. And so I would
bottle
them up.
Yeah.
Okay. At the same time, I grew up in the hood. So, being an emotional dude was not going to get you respect. It was going to get you jumped. Right? If they could sniff blood, they were going to take it. So if I'm walking up the street, I'm like, hey, I'm friendly and stuff. They'd be like, oh, let's just take his shoes, take his clothes, take his basketball, whatever. And so I was constantly having to like run from people that were trying to jump me because they would never fight me one-on-one.
And that's not a metaphor, like literal run.
Literally physically run from people all the time because they wanted to, jump me because they were too afraid to, go one-on-one because I was bigger than most people.
Unfortunately, you didn't have an uncle in Bel Air.
I did. Not at all. I wish I did. Yeah. And I had a cousin.
Isn't that what happened to Will Smith?
Crazy.
Like he was kind of nice and Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He was playing basketball and some people beat him up.
Yep, exactly. I had an aunt though that whenever the ladies would, I would call the aunt. Yeah. But I wouldn't call my cousins because they were a little too crazy. And it was like, if I call them, it's going to go way further than I want it to go. I don't want them to, kill the guy. I just want them to just get the payback, You
want to just scare them a little
Exactly.
bit. But so you're growing up and would you say you're oh gosh, what is it? Not a motor, but you're just more, I don't know, empathetic or emotional than most? I
was, and in my true nature, I was.
But because of the community, the environment, because of your mom, and not necessarily day to day having the father in your life, you just started bottling up.
Bottling up. And then even worse, now trying to become who I thought would gain me like love and acceptance, which was the street kingpin type of guy. So, I always tell people I was an all-A student. I had perfect attendance up to the 6th grade. I literally have the certificates, and my goal was to have perfect attendance through K to 12. That's how nerdy I was.
Yeah.
And by the 7th grade, I got suspended 10 times. Was supposed to be expelled from public schools. I skipped school, sold drugs, started messing around with girls, and I just was a horrible human being.
I think you had mentioned when we were together a couple of weeks ago is you had been bullied for acting a certain way that wasn't consistent with as you define the streets.
Yeah.
And then that coincides, and I have a 14-year-old son. It's right about 6th, 7th, 8th. It's different for each kid. But then the puberty hits and the hormones hit. And as a male, you start like, I need to find a tribe.
Yeah.
Like I need to find, there's size in numbers, there's strength in numbers, excuse me. And the tribe in your community, again, the values or the culture of that tribe, it wasn't perfect attendance.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It was actually the opposite.
No, I was going to say, put it lightly.
Like imperfect attendance. In fact, attendance high is respected.
Do you think a big driver, and maybe you touched on this, was like you were looking to gain acceptance into that tribe, and in order to gain acceptance, it's almost like it was the more kind of outside the lines you lived, the more they accepted you.
100%.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the more they accepted that false version of me, the more rejected the real version of me felt the entire time. So I was building this emotional pressure within myself that ultimately, when my career didn't work out, I imploded.
Before that, because we're gonna talk through that. Were there moments that it kind of bubbled up like a volcano where you almost lost it, and it doesn't have to be suicide. You just almost something bad happened where you could say, oh, wow, I clearly was projecting at that place and time that I didn't want to be this guy, but I was.
That's a good question.
That's my job.
I think I think part of it was no. I think I just ran to the next way to suppress. I never was still. Like literally, I lived out of my car a lot, not because I had to, like I had a home to live in, but I just was on the go all the time. I was staying at this person's house, this person's house, going to this AAU game. And once the high wore off, I smoked another blunt, got high. So I just never was like non-numb in order to feel what these emotions were that was happening to me. I was just literally suppressed.
I'm going to ask both mom and dad, but in this period of your life, middle school, high school, where you really kind of, it's like turned to the dark side, right? How did your mom deal with that? I mean, certainly earlier you described her as she didn't want anything to happen to you, but she also wanted to raise a tough man, for fear of not having your father day to day in your life. Like, how was she responding to that?
This is so good because people only know what you show them. And so on the surface, I was just kind of a normal knucklehead kid, like, they didn't know I was skipping school like this. They didn't know that I was selling drugs. They didn't know that I was doing half the stuff I was doing. And I wasn't showing it either. I was just, hey, like on the outside, I'm the athlete. I'm doing good. I got a 3.0 GPA. Who cares? But I wasn't applying myself. And here's the thing. Like, I believe that parents do have an innate ability to see what's deep in their children. But I also believe that there's sometimes this space that nobody but them and God knows. And so I was the only one that really knew what was deep inside me, and I wasn't really showing the world that for them to nurture it, develop it. So my parents didn't know I was so incongruent. They were just thought I was kind of like getting along. They were happy I was performing well in sports and doing decent in school.
Yeah, I was going to say there is a affirmation for parents in success of children, significant, and school, depending on the community, different value sets, values placed, but school, and then sports is a very public one. All of a sudden, like, well, my son's the star, like, look at me.
Yeah. So, small town too.
Yeah.
So it was hero.
How about your dad? Was he aware of any
Absolutely
of this?
Not. Yeah. So when about 7th, 8th grade, my mom actually moved to Detroit about an hour away from me. She went and found better opportunities. It was hard to find work in her profession in Jackson, so she found it in Detroit.
What was her profession?
She was in the healthcare industry, okay. So she'd cardiovascular stuff.
Yeah. Big word.
She's probably gonna be like, she told me the term like 300 times, but I keep forgetting every time. So whoever takes your blood and do all that stuff, make sure you're well. So my mom did that, and then I stayed with dad, and dad worked first shift, so he was like gone first thing in the morning, and then he usually my dad was a correctional officer at a boot camp.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Did he run the house that way?
Yeah, he did ish. Because he was always my dad was like one of my. I said my dad was like, as a father, he was good at teaching me. But he was more a friend to me than a father.
Like an uncle.
Yeah. Like he was, I would say in a lot of ways, my dad was like my only friend. Yeah. And so like he was just naive. He just didn't know anything. He just was like, as long as you're home when you say you're gonna be home. And
Is he still around?
yeah,
And does he know now? I mean, he has to, right?
You know what's funny? He's heard me tell these stories. He's watched me speak. He's read, but I just think he just thinks I'm a little kid. He's like, you're still my little kid. I think in my mind, in his mind, I'm still like 12.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's hard to. I haven't gotten there, but it'll be hard to see my kids as adults like on an equal. Like, no, you're still my kid, all right?
Yeah. Now I will say I do mentor him a great deal.
Oh, that's good.
He's very open-minded. He's high level. High achievers. We'll learn from anybody.
Yeah.
Like if it makes us better, we'll take the advice. And so he does. He asks great questions, and I mentor him a bit.
So you have tremendous success in sports.
Yeah.
Throughout this period in high school, and I'll get to the kind of recruiting, getting to Central Michigan side. Was there ever a risk of you not playing because of your off the field activities?
No, man, I hid it really well. I was really great at hiding it. Now I say that, but it's funny. I don't tell this story either. My senior year in high school, I'm like hesitating. I don't want to tell this story.
You killed somebody.
No, I didn't kill anybody.
We're going to cut this.
Might have to. I was hanging out with this girl, and my friends called me, and they're like, "Yo, like we're at this party. This rich dude, he's passed out drunk on the floor. Like, you want to hit the lick on him? I don't know if you know what that means, but do you want to rob him? So you want to hit the lick?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's hit the lick." So they pick me up from the house. We drive over there. We steal this guy's laptop, his television, and some random stuff that was like, I don't even know why we took it, right?
You should have got the watches. Come on.
I don't know. Somebody else grabbed some stuff in their pocket, whatever, right? So we grabbed this stuff. Long story short, ended up tracing all roads back to us because the guys that convinced me to come with them, they were at the party. And so everyone kind of like process of elimination, kind of clue, narrowed it down and was like, oh, it's them too. And so they got caught and they had to, return in. They were facing, pretty significant time for that. And no one actually knew that I was ever involved. But that was this close from my name getting associated with that. And, I always tell people like the only difference between me and people in prison or that are dead from the community I was raised is literally I didn't get caught. Like I just wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time and they were. Like that's the only difference, but I have every right to be exactly where they are in life because I made all the same choices. I just didn't get caught.
Well, number one, I think we're outside the statute of limitations, so you're safe.
Cool.
You're safe with me.
Hey.
But was that a wake-up call or did nothing change? Was it like, oh, that you flew a little too close to the sun there?
It was one of those things that was a seed that had to get nurtured over a few years, but like it didn't change anything on the outside. I still kept living the same way. Like I had a lot of fear in that moment, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be living this way. And then the moment it was like, what happened is my dad and the other guy's dad actually split the fee and they paid the guy double what the stuff was worth. And so we kind of got off the hook and he didn't press charges because he got his stuff back and he got double the money to buy this, whatever he wanted to buy again. So he was like, haha, I won. Yeah. So that saved us. And all three of us were athletes that had college scholarships. So that would have ruined their trajectory to, their prospective colleges as well.
Then you're driving through Jackson, listening to that double-sided All Eyes on Me Tupac CD saying, Thug Life.
No, not Tupac. Eminem, man.
Oh, yeah, that's
Remember
true.
Eminem?
Yeah, well,
he was hot back then, bro.
That was the only hip hop I was allowed to play in the locker room at SC.
Oh, there you go.
That was it.
Why?
Seriously?
Yeah. Why Eminem?
Because it was the only white rapper.
Are you serious?
I'm only allowed to play hip hop. Come on.
Hilarious.
I was outnumbered. It's safe to say. So, it was like, okay, all right, I have to. It's only hip hop. I only got one choice.
Eminem. Slim Shady. Yep, crushing it.
Came close to bleaching my hair, but it didn't go all the way.
Oh, dude, you should so do that. You should so do that. Come on, bro. That'll boost your views.
Post-liquidity event.
There you go.
All right, so that's funny. Why? Really? Yeah. Country music and heavy metal isn't necessarily the music genre of choice in the USC locker room.
Gotcha.
When I was there and to this day. But no, it was an amazing time and my teammates were wonderful. But no, I didn't have a lot of DJ powers,
Gotcha.
All right. So you're a great basketball player. You're a great football player. what was your process to kind of narrow down what sport you want to play in college?
I wanted to play basketball. I knew I wanted to play. I wanted to play basketball at Michigan State. That was my dream. I loved Izzo. I loved
incredible program. You probably won a natty around then.
They did. Yeah. I think. No, actually not when I was in college though. But
it was right after. But they were always good.
They were always good.
I mean, go back to Magic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Magic. It's so funny. I'm laughing because I shared the stage with him at an event 2 years ago, and the first thing I said to him is that we beat Everett when I was in high school. That's the high school he went to, and so he just laughed his tail off because he was like, well, "We were good when I was there." I was like, "But we whooped our tail though." So, anyways, this athlete's always bragging, right?
I know.
Right. Yeah, I have no clue what the question is though. What were we talking about?
I was gonna say you. Basketball, football. You wanted to play basketball.
Oh yeah. Wanted to play basketball. That was my dream. But there was so much narrative, and you know this. Like your height in basketball is below average. Your height in football is above average. Yeah. So your chances of going pro in football is way higher than your chances of going pro in basketball. And so because of that whole narrative and everything that people were telling me, I was like, okay. Well, I still love basketball way more than I like football. I hated football. It was boring. I liked basketball was way more fast paced, and football was just like, you don't get to shoot.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
I like basketball more than football, but it was a little clearer to me that I probably wouldn't have to shoot in the NBA.
You never know.
Well,
you never know.
I may have a 10-day contract with the Wizards coming up. We're working on it.
There you go,
so
bro.
That I can be like an ex-NBA player, Kyle Matthews.
Yep.
So you go to Central Michigan.
Yep.
And did you play both, or you really football?
No, they just said I could to get me there. The moment I got there, they were like, "Psych!"
Yeah, they do that. And back then, there was no transfer portal. It's like, we got you.
I would have immediately hopped in that thing.
Got you.
Yeah. I was really pissed about that. Basketball coach was pretty upset too.
So high level, how'd the football career go in college, and what ultimately led to, which was really like not just a catalyst to your kind of life today, but almost the foundation of so much of what led to you into the profession you are today, the failure of making it in sports, right?
Totally, but also the success. Man, I played for Butch Jones. We won MAC championship under his leadership, and he's a championship coach. He won one at Cincinnati, won multiple at SMU, and so it's like his mentality as a coach and excellence and success and high performance and being on the team with Antonio Brown and Eric Fisher and another, a big stack, Frank Zombo, Jaleel Adai, like a bunch of really good NFL athletes. Yeah. And it's like that culture and that mindset is very much ingrained in me to this day, and I wouldn't replace it for the world. But my career was short-lived, right?
Yeah,
I played as a true freshman, and our coach, Steve Stripling, looked at me and Antonio Brown and said, "Hey, it's not a matter of if you guys are going to go to the NFL. It's only a matter of when." 2 years later, and Antonio Brown leaves early, gets drafted 6th round, becomes top 10 receivers to ever play in the NFL. A couple months later, I was getting rushed to the hospital because I had a back injury that I was playing with for so long that it was getting atrophy in my left leg and it was going to go paralyzed.
Oh, it was like hitting the nerve.
Exactly. So for me, that was supposed to be the end of my career. Coaches said, you got a golden ticket. We're honor your scholarship. We value your leadership. And we'll let you come around sports whenever you want, right? So they wanted me to not play at all because there was a guy who had my same injury the year before me, and he tried to come back and play, and it was a disaster. So I begged them. I came back and played, and primarily because of opioids. And that's where the addiction came in.
Got it.
It's like I had to take more and more and more in order to numb the pain. I got epidural shots in my back. I was getting nerve killings. I was doing anything medically I could do to just numb the pain enough to just continue to play until I got my contract in the NFL was kind of the story I told myself. And I just never made it. So I played and started for 2 years because me hurt was better than the next guy fully healthy. But I was a shell of myself. Like it was like I was not the star that I came into the college.
Yeah, because from what I've seen with my teammates, opiates, they numb the pain, but like physically they start to zap you, but mentally, like it's hard to go hard on opiates. Like just mentally, like I'm going to push myself. And so that had the effect.
It did, man. I mean, I held my own, right? I made some plays. We won some games, but it was at a cost to my emotional, my physical, my spiritual health.
And when was the last game and what ultimately led to the end of it?
And I wish I could remember that last game because it was my junior year and it was at whatever our second or third to last game of that season was. But I was taking these opioids so much that they were thinning my blood to the point where every time I made contact on the field, my nose would bleed. And the coaches just was catching on that this is not allergies, right? Like something's really wrong with this guy. And the other thing is that because I was getting so many procedures done to my back and because I was banging it so hard, I started to get this like permanent hunch in my back. So I was fast as crap as an athlete, especially for a big guy. And so, you know, I'm still running 4.4, but with this hunch in my back, like a freaking like bat. And so they can see all this injury and they're like, yo, we know he signed a liability waiver, but this is a case. And so they just kicked me off my team my junior year, and
they just wouldn't clear you.
They wouldn't clear me, man. They just quit. I felt like they quit on me. I felt like there was more they could have done. I realize now that it was probably one of the wisest decisions that they could have made. And it bought me a year. I had 1 year to finish out my, you know, athletic career, my student journey. Yeah. And so that gave me enough time to try to get some type of skills, because I always tell people I had the right degree. I just didn't have the experience because I was just getting by. I knew how to cheat and talk to teachers. So
yeah, and you're an athlete. You're like, it's hard. It's actually hard to develop skill and even the resume, because in the summer you work out.
Exactly.
You know, it's even as a student, even if you want to apply yourself, it's not impossible. But it's not just the hours you spend at a football. It's how tired you are. Yeah. No, yes to all that, and how tired. Like, okay, great, you watch your film, but you doing your workout, then you practice, then you go to a 2-hour lecture class, and it's dark, and you just like your body shuts down. Yeah, you know. So yeah, it is hard in defense of athletes, even when you're trying. But so your career's over, the medical, you got about a year. Is it safe to say this is around the time kind of peak depression, ultimately suicide?
Ah, man, it wasn't until I got kicked off the team that I felt the weight of the depression. I was taking so many opioids and doing so many other drugs, primarily weed, that I didn't feel what was really going on in there. I just was numb to it. I was just like, I know it feels bad in there, but I don't want to feel that. So I'll just smoke, or I'll just take some opioids and I'll be fine. I'll feel great. So when sports got taken away, it was like, man, I don't have this outlet physically for sports anymore. Now the emotions are way too heavy. It felt like the numbness with the weed and you know, the opioids weren't doing it anymore. And I started to feel those emotions. And then I always tell people, whatever you don't express, you suppress. And when you suppress, it's only a matter of time before you implode or explode. I imploded. And I started to go to the self-hatred. A big part of it was, I told you, I changed who I was to fit in with other people. Yeah. And so sports was one of those things where I could kind of hide behind that identity as an athlete. And people liked me because I was an athlete. And I felt without that, I was going to go back to this kid that was teased for being a black kid that talked and act white. I was going to go back to not fitting in with any friend group. I was going to go back to not being cool. And so I didn't want to go back to that. And I couldn't go forward. So I wanted out.
And so what does that look like? Is it days? Is it weeks where you're kind of sitting there feeling sad, you know, feeling kind of stuck or hopeless, and then ultimately leads like to this decision again? You can walk us through where you say, yep, I'm going to do this. Like, is it a thoughtful decision to make that attempt, or is it just some spontaneous drug-induced attempt? Like what happened there?
Yeah. I always say that depression grows in silence and it multiplies in isolation. And so when you're not talking about it, it grows. And then when you're by yourself, it multiplies. And so it was like that. It just kept growing and multiplying. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. That's not something we really talked about. Vulnerability wasn't a thing. It wasn't a buzzword back then. And so I'm just literally just living with this, I don't want to be here. And it started as like, I didn't want to like take a gun and, you know, harm myself in that way. I used to tell myself I didn't have the courage to do that. So I would do stuff that I had the courage to do. I no longer like use that vernacular, because what I realized is that I did have a tremendous amount of courage. The courage I was using to continue to live, even though all of me wanted to die. And so I think people who don't attempt and don't have the courage, quote unquote, to pull the trigger, they actually have the most courage, because they're fighting a very strong, dark presence. And so, it started with like smaller attempts, like, oh, let me see what happens if I drink a whole fifth of alcohol and get in the car and drive. Let me see if I swallow my whole bottle of oxycodones, and let me see if that affects me. What happens if I take these Vicodins and mix it with this alcohol? Multiple times of like writing my suicidal letter, thinking about ending it with a rope. Until my last attempt, which was in a vehicle. My plan was to drive off this road into this intersecting highway and just get in a car accident. And so I literally drank a fifth of alcohol. I smoked a blunt. I wrote my suicide letter.
And what stopped you from it?
Oh, God. I'm driving 75 miles per hour down a 35 mile per hour road. I'm raging. I'm angry. I'm upset. And I see my phone flicker. And I'm driving by this church where this guy was trying to mentor me and tell me I had purpose. But I just didn't. I thought he was just saying the stuff that pastors were supposed to say. And I went to hang up on my mom because she was calling me, and I got big fingers. I hit the answer button, and my mom just knew. She said, I don't know what's going on right now, but I need you to let me help you. Now, I could have maybe texted her or something. I don't remember. But she called at the right moment, and she convinced me in that moment to drive from Mount Pleasant to Detroit, Michigan. Was about 2.5 hours away. And I the whole time there, I just listened to worship music. And I was crying the whole time because I still wanted to just, off the side of the road. And I just had to focus on something else. I get there, and I couldn't eat. I went from 275 pounds to 219 pounds in 4 weeks from trying to starve myself to death. My mother looks at me. Last time she saw me, I was a big, huge guy, and I'm frail, and I'm weak, and I'm skinny. And she's like, whoa, you got to eat something. Couldn't eat anything. She goes to bed. I'm like, I'm stupid. I try to go finish what I started. She heard the screen door slam because it's like, those old crickety screen doors. Runs out the house, jumps on the hood of the car, says, let me go get you some help. Takes me to the psychiatric unit, and that's where my life changed forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you sharing that. Have you ever talked to I assume your mom kind of knows what you're going through. Like, it's, good timing is to put it bluntly on her part. Mm-hmm. She very much saved your life.
She did.
It's like a mother's intuition.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
It very much is.
And so you checked yourself into the psychiatric ward. Is that what it is?
Yeah, psychiatric care facility. I think they call it behavioral health facility or something like
everything,
that.
They put nicer terms on everything now. But it doesn't matter so much what it's called. It's what they do.
Yeah.
And ultimately what it led to. But walk us through what happens when you go in there.
I had been crying for so long. My eyes were swollen so I couldn't see, but just a little slit out the bit of my eyes. They bring me in there. The doctor starts asking me, why did I want to end my life? And I can't answer the question. I'm screaming at him, just leave me alone. I just want to die. Mm-hmm. He keeps trying. I keep saying the same thing. He leaves the room. At this time, my grandma or my mom's there. My sister's there. My dad's there. And I think maybe my aunt or one other person. And you could just feel how heavy it is. Everybody's like, how the hell did he get here? It's like super heavy in that room. And I just kept screaming, leave me alone. I just want to die. A woman came in. I call her the woman with green pants because that's all I could see is that she had on green pants. She comes in. She says, I don't know who you are. I don't have jurisdiction to be back here in this part of the hospital. But God sent me back here to tell you that you need to say yes to him when you say yes. Now, I was an atheist. Or not atheist, I was an agnostic. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was atheist for like a day. I was agnostic. And so I was like, man, I don't want any of that religion stuff. That's not going to bring my girlfriend back. That's not going to heal my body, bring my sport back. Just leave me alone. I just want to die. This lady prayed for me for like 5 minutes. I felt like it was 5, I guess. Or I felt like it was 15. My mom said it was 5. And the whole time she's praying, I'm just like, leave me alone. I just want to die. She leaves. And very shortly after that, my grandmother comes in the room. She had driven from Jackson, Michigan, to Detroit where I was being hospitalized. And she said, I've been praying for you all the way here. God told me you know exactly what to do. You need to say yes to him. So it's the same command from 2 different people who didn't know each other, never talked to each other. And I couldn't deny that something divine was happening. But I was hard-headed. Grandma was religious. She was a churchgoer. She was supposed to say something like that. And so my grandma actually prayed for me for a couple minutes. And I just said the same thing to her, like, leave me alone. I just want to die. Like, that's your God. It's not mine. And then it just got silent and heavy. And all I know how to describe is that I felt like I heard this still small voice to me say, will you just say yes? And there was something about hearing that gave me the strength to mutter out yes. I'm not exaggerating. That's how I said it. The moment I said that, the depression I was facing, it immediately left me. I don't know if you'll believe this or not, but my eyes actually got healed. I could open them. I could see them again. And it felt so good to feel not the weight of depression that I literally started to yell, "Yes, God, yes, Lord, yes, Lord." Doctor comes in, runs in the room. What's going on? I was like, I was running from God and I just said yes to him. He goes, "We got to hurry up and get this guy upstairs."
Yeah, I was about to say, he's crazy.
Don't tell the psychiatric people that you were running from God. He said yes to him. Okay. But it was true. I felt free in that moment. I felt saved in that moment. I felt purpose in that moment. I felt hope in that moment. I felt everything, life.
Very visceral.
Very, very. I'll never forget that feeling. And so that was like, people say, well, what? That was it. Like, I left that place knowing this. I said, if God, you save me from suicide. Like, I don't think you understand. When I told you I drank the fifth of alcohol and I tried to drive, I fell asleep at the wheel for 5 minutes. And I woke up still driving straight. When I swallowed a whole bottle of pills, not only did I not wake up not dead, I wasn't even high. And I said, God's keeping me here for something. And I wanted to find out what that something was. And I knew it had something to do with leadership and somewhat with, like, I don't know if I would have said speaking, but like being a vocal leader. I knew it had something to do with that because of what I knew as a child that I yearned to do. And I just started to follow those little threads of purpose. Let me see what's in there. It's a seed right now. What happens if I water? What happens if I go and retake an undergraduate course, which I did, onto public speaking? Let me just see if I find out something that's in there. And then I started to discover, like, yeah, this is what I'm gifted and called to do.
Did they let you out of the hospital that moment, or was there?
No, you had the rule is that back then is 3 days minimum that you got to stay there when you make an attempt. I think the law is like 5 now. So I had to stay there for a couple of days.
But you were ready, like almost right away. You were ready to go out and do something.
I was ready immediately. Yeah, I was ready to go. In fact, I told myself the story that I was there in the psych unit for somebody else. Like, oh, all this happened because somebody else. And then my bedmate, he said, has it ever occurred to you that maybe you're here for you? And that's when I got introduced to self-care, did my first mindfulness exercise, had my first session with a counselor, same thing with a psychiatrist. And I started to learn there's this whole world, did my first journal entry. There's this whole world on the inside of here that I wasn't paying attention to. And that was a big catalyst to the work I do today.
What was the first thing you did when you got out?
Went to church.
Legit. How did that feel? Your first time kind of going to church, and you didn't, I'm saying this, but like kind of after you've been saved, so to speak.
Yeah.
First time you go to church, it hits different.
It hit totally different. And he was teaching a marriage series. And there was multiple services. So I came to the second service and he goes, I don't know why, but I'm feeling led to switch the sermon I'm teaching about. And I want to talk about purpose and hope. And he literally starts talking about suicide and that and depression. And I'm telling you, he didn't even do like, he didn't even say come up to the altar yet. I was up there. I was full on my knees, crying like a baby.
Dancing around.
100%. And he whispers in my ears, he says, it was just for you.
Oh, wow. Mm. That's real serious. I was about to make a joke speaking in tongues. Like, it's kind of like I can't make a joke. But that's incredible. It's an incredible story. It's you just up to this point, your story, let alone the moment in the hospital with accepting, and then even the church thing.
I'm surprised you went there, but now everybody does, and they don't have to. I got lots of goods outside of that, but good job. Yeah. Good stuff, bro.
Just go where the water takes me.
There you go.
What was, other than going to church, what was the first big pursuit that post-hospital, Darryll, it was going and doing the speech class? Like, what was the first thing? Okay, here's how I'm going to proactively change my life.
Yeah. You ever see people struggle to get in cold water?
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah, are you really?
Oh, yeah.
Like dip the toe in first?
That's the worst.
Are you really, bro?
Yeah, I don't like the cold water.
Oh, really? Yeah, a guy like you seem like you're like all in. That's hilarious, actually.
I'm all in, just not cold water.
So you don't do cold plunges?
No, I think it's, I just think the people who do it are just idiots.
There's a lot of science about how it helps the body and stuff, right?
Sure.
We'll get you in a cold plunge now.
I'll do it. And I'm sure I'll feel great after, but I don't know. It's like, you know, that like you're basically starting the process of killing yourself. Speaking of suicide, stay in a cold plunge for like 30 minutes, you're dead.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, call me crazy.
No, I get it. So using that analogy, you get it, right? Like put the toe in first and maybe go into the knees and then go into the waist. That's how I would describe my journey to start to attempt. I knew I was supposed to be speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I like big K in my inner knowing, I knew. But I was so scared. I was so afraid to be seen, to be expressed. And then I was bad at it. And you know this, like as a high level athlete, we don't want to start from the beginning at something. So it was like, if I was like dope at it and I could just start off being a top 100 speaker, it would have been great. But when I start off being like a speaker that can't even put like a paragraph together, it was terrible. And so I didn't want to embarrass myself and do it. And in public speaking, you know, you're very exposed.
You hit on something actually is fun. Some people are like, oh, like, man, you guys hire a lot of athletes. Now, we do have a lot of athletes here. Just the profession draws that. But no, in fact, I kind of say like, you know, the problem with a lot of college and even professional athletes is part of the reason they're playing sports in college and pros is because it always came easy to them.
Mm-hmm.
You were always probably bigger, faster, stronger than everybody. That doesn't mean you didn't put in the work. And so a lot of athletes early on, if they start something new and it's hard, they're like, I ain't doing it.
Oh yeah. Quick, fast. Because they're so discouraged because they know what it takes. And they're like, I ain't doing that.
A lot of athletes are like, oh, this sounds tough. It's going to take a long time. Like, I ain't about that life.
Yeah. Legit.
But you did that with speaking because it wasn't natural.
No, not at all.
So you approached it kind of programmatically. Like you almost, by taking class, like you almost approach it from like, here's the science behind it.
Totally. So I went and retook the class and I had a great teacher. His name was Adam Barragato. He was so helpful. He was really ahead of his time. He was teaching in person, but he's also doing a lot of virtual curriculum. So he would go in these studios and we have to record lessons for the students before their classes. And he was very free. He would be like, I'd show up to the studio like in my tie. It's just hilarious. Have you seen the picture? You'd be so embarrassed. I just sent it to the team so they can put it with the video part. It's super embarrassing. It's like my tie. I look so lame. And he'd be in like shorts and a Florida t-shirt.
You got it at Men's Warehouse.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got it hand me down from somebody because I didn't even have anything at the time. And so shout out to Steve for giving me my first ties, right? And like and so this guy was all free and he's like ready to just like flow and I'm like and he was trying to like kick it back and forth to me and I have the video of
you're like
this.
B-Rabbit in 8 Mile, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Mom spaghetti.
Exactly. And but he was very instrumental and he was very brilliant in explaining how to communicate, different forms of communication. A lot of people that teach speaking right now, they have no training on even what is actually happening. They're just good speakers that are telling you got to be passionate. You know, it's like they have no understanding that there's frameworks and models and science. But Adam taught me all of that. Yeah, exactly.
What was your kind of your mindset this period of time? I guess how long did the glow of being saved and having this new purpose last? Like, were there ever moments that you slipped back to where you're like, all of a sudden you lost a little bit of that fire and you felt like you were kind of
that's such a good question. I got to be careful with the answer. It's all good. I was going on your first initial ask. I was going to say, man, that fire never burned out because it didn't. It still is the fire I'm flaming today, but it did get really, really dim. Actually, from working in the church. And what happened is I had this like want to reach the world mentality. And I was agnostic for so long. So my beliefs were very different than just like a normal pastor, I guess. That was like, thus saith, you know. I had a broader understanding of spirituality. And so I was in this church environment feeling like suppressed, feeling like, oh, I'm trying to change the world. I'm trying to grow kingdoms. And like, we just want people to come to church and serve on our ministry teams, but there's a whole world outside of this. And I was just like, so that fire started to just dim. And I'm like,
they didn't let you spread your spiritual creative wings as much.
Yeah. And again, I take ownership, right? They didn't. It's like, I wasn't, right? Like I was still tiptoeing into that water. right? Just like I'm doing the speaking thing. I'm making money now. I started off in marketing consultant, then I got into the sports space, doing a lot of teams, a lot of FCA, a lot of athletes in action stuff, like doing some corporate stages. And like, I just never really, like, you got to think about this. I'm an award-winning marketer. I've got a lot of chops in marketing, and I never marketed myself as a speaker because I just subconsciously was afraid of being seen on a higher level.
Yeah.
And so until like this year.
what, from a mentality standpoint, what finally got you over that fear?
The fear to be seen. Oh.
Yeah, because look, I'm just going to make an assumption here. Like clearly you had started to receive positive feedback as it related to your speak, probably a lot.
A lot, yeah.
And yet this final like, hey, let me market, it's such a general statement, but it is the right statement. Like, let me market this and really expand the funnel of speaking leads. If this is how I'm going to, I provide a living while providing just as much a living to you, providing help, support, care to a degree to the audience.
Totally.
Like, helping them learn how to tell their story, if nothing else. What finally allowed you to develop the courage and the confidence to say, no, I'm going to put myself out there. Like, I'm good at this.
It was getting tired of coming to that water, putting my toe in, stepping out, coming to the water, going waist deep, stepping out, coming in the water, immersing myself, saying the amount of times that I quit and said I'm not going to do this. I don't even have a record of that.
Let me ask you, what was it? Very simply, what was it that you were afraid of happening? Like, what was that worst case scenario? And I'll lead you is like people boo you off the stage. Like,
no, I think it's two things. I think it was one, and I felt this as an athlete. And then I think it's an insecurity of a lot of high level people in general, is that it's hard to know if people love you for you or just for your gift. And so I think I was like afraid if I got too big, too important, I would be right back as an athlete where there's all these people around me like, oh, we care about you and your family. But the moment I wasn't going pro anymore, they were like, oh, I forgot about this guy, including my own team who didn't invite me to my senior banquet, by the way. So like, I live with that like fear that like, oh, when I get a bigger platform as speaker, now it's like everybody's gonna want to be my friend, and I'm not gonna know who's in it for me and who's in it just because they think that they have something that they can get from me. And so I didn't want to experience that again. I was like not wanting to relive that trauma. And then at the same time, I was fed from the speaking industry so long. I binged watch YouTube like nobody's business, still do. And I just could not fathom that I was a peer amongst people I was been a student of my entire life. It's like I just didn't see myself as an equal. I saw myself as the guy that was still rebuilding his life from suicide, not the guy who's now giving back to others.
Imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
And that finally just went away.
Yes, it didn't. Pain pushes to the vision pulls, Michael Beckwith. It didn't go away. It hurt so bad from me not living congruently that I finally said, I'm going to go the opposite direction now. And I think that happened in two ways. Number one, I had this rally cry. My TED Talk did 2.1 million views in a year and a half, completely organically.
Where can people find that?
It's just on YouTube. It's Overcoming Rejection. Okay. And
I need to have our cold callers listen.
Totally. Legit helps with a lot of that. I do a lot of training for sales teams too. But I had this false badge of honor that I did it completely organically. And I don't know if it was a person or an epiphany. I don't remember which one. But I had this moment where I was like, still bragging about it on a podcast or something. And then I was like, you know what? That's stupid. I did 2.1 million views in a year and a half, completely organically. What would have happened if I would have had a team, would have did some PR, would have actually went all in some other areas? How many more people could I have helped? And that right there was a big wake up call. Okay. The other thing that happened is I was talking to Eric Thomas in person, and I was just telling him about this wrestle that I have. I was like,
safety?
No, man. Eric Thomas is a motivational speaker, but there is a safety named Eric Thomas though.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he played with my dad. Oh, E.T. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so E.T. the hip hop preacher.
I was like,
right?
oh, you know E.T. Oh, cool, man.
Yeah. No, not that one. Different one.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm talking to Eric Thomas, and I'm like telling him about this wrestle I've been in my entire career. I'm like thinking he can relate. Like I'm like, man, I got this greatness, but I got so much resistance to it. I really don't want to do it.
For a safe space
like looking for him to be like, man, me too, bro. You know? And he goes, oh, you a bad man. You know better than God? I mean, I don't know. He's like, dude, I don't know, man. I don't know how you do that, bro. You a bad dude. I don't know how you told God no. And he just
called you out.
He didn't even call me out. He was just like so thought about it totally differently that I saw how stupid it was that I was thinking that way.
I'm sure it was rude. There was some dripping in sarcasm there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was dripping, but it also was like, he was legit like, hey man, if that's how you roll, then go for it. Like, I don't know how you gonna tell God better. Like, you that smart, you know better than God. And he was just so matter of fact about it. It was like, okay, this is really stupid that I'm doing this. Like, and I never thought about it that way either. I always thought like, oh, I'm just in wrestle. I never thought I was in disobedience. And I was.
Would you say some of the driver, both of those make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the driver could have been fear of failure is because if you don't put yourself out there and do the marketing and do the advertising and you're like, hey man, I got 2.1 million. I didn't do anything. Is that if it fails, you could say, well, yeah, but I didn't go all the way.
Yeah.
I didn't go all the way. See, if I had went all the way, if I had done all these things, I'd be just like you, but I didn't,
Fear of failure and fear of success are Siamese twins. Like it is one side of the same coin. It's like, yes, fear of failure, just like you're saying. Mm-hmm. If I actually put my full effort and it doesn't, I'm not as good as I think that I am on the inside, that's super embarrassing. But then on the other side, fear of success. If I have this success and I'm good, you're only as good as it's unlike sports where you can have an average score. Like, oh, it's good if you average 24.5 points a game. So if you get a 5-point game and a 40-point game, it's all killer. Keep scoring more than you don't. You don't get the speech back. There's not an average speaker rating. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like if you bomb that thing, you bomb that thing. No more invitations. So I had a fear that if I'm successful, I can't repeat that success. And that was a deep fear for a long time.
You touched on something. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. Again, we didn't have a ton of time on the show, but like, and I've had a lot of time to psychoanalyze this, not just within myself, my teammates, family members, of when your playing days are over and the depression comes because you're like, oh, my career is over. My experience and what I've seen in those around me is it's not as much depression. I can't play the game I love. Some people, sure. Like we all love the game, but like it's depression of like, well, no one's going to love me anymore. I have no self-worth because of what I say is the mistake is they think their value as a person is what they do and not who they are.
Yes.
Because society places like, hey, Darryll, I love you because you're a great player and you play for my favorite team and you help them win, which brings me joy. Yeah. And the second you stop doing that, I'm going to stop loving you. Yeah. And there's a reason we feel that because there's a foundation of truth there. Yeah. But so much of the challenges post playing days, whether it's college, pro, whatever. And again, whether you played 5 years in the league or to Tom Brady, 22 years in the league, like there's always life after football and they all struggle. What advice would you have for people? Some people might be high school sports, candidly, to get them to buy into this belief that what you do is not your value. What you do should not be the primary driver of happiness.
Yeah. Here it is.
Who am I?
Look at that guy. Look at that guy. That's it.
Yeah.
Who am I after sports?
Hold it up to that. There you go.
Okay. Legit. And again, I'm not actively pushing that brand. I'm like so focused on this speaking stuff now, but this book continues to serve the world. I think the first half of it is just complete gold when it comes to that wrestle, that identity. And I even cover the part of what we were discussing at breakfast this morning is this part of what makes people struggle so much after sports is they didn't give their full during sports. So they're living with this regret of like, man, I didn't give it everything I had there in this dark depression because they didn't give it their all. And so even people that are in sports, how you transition well isn't just don't put all your eggs in one basket. No, it's actually give it everything you got while you're there so that when you transition, you feel like I poured it all out.
Yeah, that we were talking about that.
Yeah.
That is, was, and always will be my regret with sports is that I can't say, even if I gave everything I had, and my last game was my last game, the same as it was my last game of my senior year of college. I can't sit here and say I gave everything. I always did what I was told.
Yeah.
I did every workout. I did every practice. I watched the film, but I could have done so much more. And even if that led to the same outcome, which is like, I get a couple plays a game, I'm a kick off and that's it. I've convinced myself, I really think this is true, that I would have a lot more satisfaction and a lot less regret.
100%.
Yeah, and that's a big driver for me professionally and personally to this day, is I never want to feel like that again.
It's the worst pain.
But that's your message.
It's the worst pain because you can't undo it. It's literally like you can't be like, oh, just get back in there. I can't. I cannot go back to being an athlete again. I wasted the opportunity. So
how are you applying that lesson that you learned in football to the point you wrote a book about it into your profession today? Like how 20 years from now are you operating today to put yourself in a position 20 years from now you have no regrets? Or as little as possible in terms of whatever success you achieve.
So number one, in my life, same thing as you. Like I want everything to be elite. Right. I want my relationship to be elite. I want my emotional health. I want my physical health. I want everything to be elite. Right. Because to me, that's my life fully poured out. I gave everything I had. Within my profession as a communicator and somebody who trains others, I want to be fully expressed and help other people to be fully expressed. So who am I? After sports, I discovered that I am way more broad than my skill as an athlete. There's actually a lot more in here than the one skill that I developed highly. And part of my life's work is to make sure that everything that's in my heart, a book, an idea, a podcast, a freaking generosity impulse, it doesn't matter. Anything that's in my heart, I want to follow that and give it to the world. I don't want to hold it. I don't want to set it to later. I don't want to put it off to tomorrow. I want to actually follow it all the way through so that I live fully expressed. Even my personality. There are a lot of people that got two different personalities. They got one when they're around their friends and they got one when they show up on stage. Okay. Two different things. And they're with their friends, whoo, goofy. They got all types of habits. And, I was talking to one of my new clients and this guy is a neurologist, right? And I heard him speak and it was so vanilla. It was like, dude, that was snooze. Okay. And I found out this guy drives a Ferrari and loves to race on racetracks. He was in the Navy and he played rugby.
You're like, where's that guy?
I'm like, where's the rugby guy? Man. There's no way. And he got an instrument and everything. That's what I'm talking about. So full expression is part of this work for me. And that to me is a big lesson. I was so suppressed and unexpressed as an athlete that I decided I was going to be fully expressed in my profession and everything that I did in my life moving forward.
Question for you, as we spoke earlier about this offline, about victim mentality, agency, and all that, and I'm just going to take one part of your life where you have every right to be. You were a victim, getting bullied for getting good grades and dressing professional in a kid's
and using proper English.
Using proper English. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And in the moment, you're victimized, right? I think a lot of people struggle in personal life, professional life, because they get into this victim mentality where it's like, it doesn't really matter what I do. This life isn't fair because something unfair has happened to them often many, many different times. Many times within that bucket, and many different things that are unfair have happened to him. What advice or what guidance through your talks have you provided about not becoming a victim? Recognizing that this happened to you, and it's not fun, it's not nice, and hopefully it never happens again. But again, this isn't necessarily how you frame it. Like you have agency. Empower yourself to not let that define you, and just go seize the day. Go create and live the life you want to.
Totally. So I say this often. Okay, your pain is real, but the power you have over it is greater. Your pain is real, but the power you have over it is greater. And so, like, I have tons of mental illnesses. I got ADHD. I got clinical depression. I got a long list of stuff. Okay, I'm dyslexic. I got a lot of stuff. But like, the difference between me in the darkness and me in this light now is like, I still face depression, but now it doesn't pull me, I pull it. You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Now when I'm in it, I'm not like, oh God, I can't help it. It's just pulling me down to the bottom of the barrel and I'm going to end in my life. It's like now I'm like, oh no, well, shift my state. Now I have control. I have the power over my power over my pain is greater than the pain and what it's caused me. And I think that's where people get wrong. I think people, when we try to say you're not a victim, you have agency, I think they feel like we're minimizing their pain.
Yeah.
We're not trying to minimize your pain. We're trying to maximize the power that you have over it.
Yeah, it's great advice for husbands because like one of the first things you hear, and it took me about 7-8 years to really, is like my wife says, hey, like I want to tell you something that happened. The best thing I can do is say like, hey, I hear you. That's real. And I'm sorry that you had to deal with it. And then you go into trying to fix it.
Yeah.
But like if you just, I think it's, like recognize like, man, that sucks. Like, I'm sorry to hear that. Like that's like 90% of the equation. The last 10 is like the practical, hey, maybe this will help.
Yeah.
Speaking of helping people, what if someone feels depressed, and again, maybe as far as suicide, but depressed or just down, right? Or doesn't, it's like, Darryll, I want your conviction. I want your confidence, but God has not spoken to me. My family has not intervened and has put me in a hospital. Like, how do I get like you without those catalysts?
Yeah. Step one, you got to figure out why you feel how you feel. Okay. Most people just feel and they don't know why. I say this all the time. They misdiagnose how they feel, so therefore they mistreat it. Okay, you with me? Mm-hmm. All right. You want me to explain that? You're buffering.
No, I'm like, okay.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Right. So I had a huge perceivable anger problem in my first, I don't know, half of my marriage. And so anytime my wife would raise her voice at me or talk to me like she was crazy, I would like be like, oh, you don't talk to me like that. I'm the man of this house. I would just go in anger, right? So I would go in counseling and I would try to fix my anger problem. That's what I diagnosed. Well, I get in this counseling session and my counselor's like, hey, Darryll, it doesn't sound like you're angry. It actually sounds like your feelings are hurt. Now, bro, come on. That's too.
My feelings.
My feelings.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
What? Feelings? What? No. What? Hurt? No. Yeah. No. So she said, how about next time when you argue with your wife, how about instead of saying that you're mad at her or whatever you do, how about you tell her she hurt your feelings? Okay. So 2 years later.
Yeah, I'm about to say, like,
after arguing, it not working, me yelling at her, not changing her.
Kind of sound like a bitch.
100%. Yeah. So now I have a proper diagnosis. Hey, it's not anger. It is hurt. Two different things. You treat anger with anger management. You treat hurt with vulnerability and being heard. Okay. So next argument, here we go. I feel it. Here she's talking to me like she's crazy again. I feel it rising. I'm ready to tell her how she should talk to me. And then I go, sweetheart, you're hurting my feelings. Huh? Yeah, you're hurting my feelings. You know what she does?
She said, stop acting like a bitch.
She did it. She went,
yeah. Because now you're speaking her language. And you're like, yeah, I talk Thai. I talk Thai very well.
And I watched her change her countenance in seconds. Yeah. And it changed our relationship for life. Yeah. Because how she relates to somebody who's hurt is different than somebody who thinks they're mad at her and blah, 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 blah. Totally different.
Yeah, talk their language.
Okay. So people oftentimes misdiagnose how they feel all the time. They say, oh, I'm just busy. How you doing? I'm fine. Oh, what's going on? Oh, the stress, right? And now they're just trying to treat that. I need to work less. I need to take more vacation. But what might be happening is they might be wounded. They might be hurt. They might be struggling with unforgiveness. They don't know until they properly diagnose themselves and what they're dealing with emotionally. And how you do that is through awareness. You look at where the frictions in your life. For me, it was the argument. And then you trace it back and you go, when's the first time I remember feeling this way? First time I remember feeling that way was mom. Whenever I would try to raise my voice or talk back to mom, she'd say, boy, you better not talk back to me. She even popped me in my mouth. And so I was consciously talking to my wife, trying to get her to stop talking to me, but subconsciously I was standing up for myself against mom. That was the right diagnosis, and that's how I could treat it right. Now I could start working on that story with mom, my forgiveness with mom, my relationship with mom, and then it fixed my relationship with my wife, Britt. Make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
What do you believe? And I like to oversimplify. I love simplifying things for my simple mind, but I think most people do.
Yeah.
What is, in your opinion, often the most common root feeling of behavior that they don't like, whether it's anger? Is it
they don't feel like they're enough.
Okay.
I think deep down, most people don't feel like they're enough to do great things with their life. They don't feel like they're enough to have the love and the affection that they desire deeply within. They don't feel like they're enough to have the success that they desire deep within their heart. I think they live with this undertone of I'm not enough because we live in an education system that measures you on skills that are not even your predominant strengths and tell you that you suck.
This is true.
And so that's part of it. And then oftentimes, man, like as parents, here's the truth is like, we tend to validate our children for things we enjoy and not for everything that's in their heart. And so like sometimes most people are just a version of themselves that they think will make their parents happy versus all of themselves.
That's such a powerful line. It's so true. I have 4 kids. It's like we as parents, my wife and I, is like we validate children for things we enjoy or are valuable to us. Like, oh, you know, it reflects well on us as parents if they're the best student, therefore you must get great grades, right? Or, oh, it makes us feel better about ourselves if our kid scores the touchdown or the goal. And so like when they do, it's high. When they don't, it's low.
I know.
You know, as opposed to for what they are, even if their passions or their enthusiasm or something they're truly great at from a, to your point, society's standpoint isn't really a common measure of success or valued, but for them, it's what they love.
Yeah. And it's bad, man. Like I love sports. And so in my family, and that's what I got the most informed from it. And no, we all don't want to be our parents, but we all end up being a version of our parents, right? It's just really hard to break that pattern. And so like literally I find myself like when they do athletic things, I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Then they're doing other stuff. I'm like, and I have to be intentional and mindful. I'm not the best at it, but I got to be mindful to make sure that I'm giving them the same energy of the things that I'm like, not my favorite things, but are their favorite things as I do the things that I do like. Yeah.
I can do better at that. You said the answer to my question of like, if you had to pick one in the simple, like what is the most common feeling that you think drives a lot of this people's behavior that in a perfect world, they're like, man, I wish I wasn't so angry or so frustrated, so depressed, is feeling not enough.
Yep.
I was writing down, I guess that's a version of like feeling special. And then I took it a step further. I said, I feel like people feel like I don't really matter. I don't really matter. What would you tell people to get them to buy-in that they really do matter?
Two things. I would do that daughter example. It works really well.
I was going to say it ties back to the first thing we spoke about.
It does. Because you can talk and debate, but a mind convinced against its own will is of the same persuasion still. Okay? A mind convinced against its will is of the same persuasion still.
Like an Eminem lyric?
I don't know. It's somebody deep said that, right?
Pretty good.
And we can
don't tell someone. Just say you did it. Nobody else.
I'm not going to do that. Yeah, because then they're going to say he's lying. It's somebody has said that. I read it one time and I was like, oh, that's so true. How many times have I coached somebody and like they just went along because I said, yeah, this is right. But it was so against their own will and psychology that they just defaulted back to their other level of belief. And it's like, man, I convinced them against their own will and it's of the same persuasion still. You can only modify that behavior so long before you default back to the psychology that's creating the behavior. And so like, man, it's super challenging to debate with people who already have their minds made up that they're not enough because they'll always find a reason to prove their belief true. So that's why I love using the daughter example because they cannot refute that. And then it hits them right. It's like I don't go through the front door with their psychology. I go through the back door with the story. And then they're like, oh, I am doing that right now. And it helps a tremendous amount of people.
So much of being effective leader in business, simply put, for me has been, there's 2 ways to get people to do something you want to do. It's either because I told you or I showed you. I told you is like, you're going to do this because I'm telling you have to, because this is the way it's done. And even if I'm right, most of the time they did it just because I told them.
Yep.
And it's just like the quote you just provided.
Yeah.
But when you, in a roundabout way, make it their idea, but you show them why they should because it benefits them, not because they have to, but because you took it always takes extra time and energy. And that's like the hard part in management. Cause there are days where like told you to, it's like kids and brushing your teeth. It's like, 9 out of 10 days, like, you got to brush your teeth because I told you so. And like every now and then I'll have just enough energy to like, let me explain why you should brush your teeth. Professionally speaking, if you can take the extra time and energy and effectively communicate to them why it's actually better for them to choose to do it, it's so much more effective, because then they'll continue in theory to do it more often. And it's not just like you constantly have to tell them.
Totally. I'm going to steal a page from my guy, Parker J. always says this quote: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." Okay. And most people,
you're like a human fortune cookie.
I told you I can help you, bro. It's like most people think that like, they only think about the pain. They don't think about what's on the other side of it. And it's like, it is, their unbelief becomes this wall that's so big that they can't even see the purpose that's beyond their unbelief. Like, they're just like, no, I'm not enough. So therefore, me doing all this stuff, I'm still going to end up in the same place. It's like, dude, you have no idea who you could become if you tried to figure out who you really are. And I think that is the key. It is to recognize that all great things come from hard things. All great marriages come from hard conversations. All great careers come from difficult moments. All great purpose is found through a depth of challenge to find it and to follow it. And so we just get ready for it to be hard and just embrace it. The cave we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek. And the thing that we desire most deeply in our heart is actually connected to things that we are most resistant to follow and do.
You speak to thousands. Tens of thousands, I mean, hundreds of thousands.
Millions.
Millions. Yeah, no, that's a good, I mean, literally 2.1 on one.
That's one
talk. You didn't even market it.
I marketed it. I just didn't do anything that wasn't organic. All I did was talk about it on social. But
vulnerability is a huge part of the message. And people, whether it's...
Wow, don't get me started on vulnerability.
Well, I'm about to get you started. Okay. So tough shit.
Okay.
This is my house. All right.
This is good. Matthew's mentality.
That's
baby.
Right. Vulnerability. So whether they're speaking to a group of 5 people at the office and they're the group manager, or they're giving a speech at the company, or they're giving a speech at a wedding, or they're giving a speech to tens of thousands, millions when added up on views. So much of a talk, if they really wanted to bring it, it would be being vulnerable. You know, the shame, failure, brokenness. It really is a courage thing. How do you teach these people to develop the courage to basically make the crux of their speech, hey, let me tell you how I suck in so many ways?
Yeah. I'm just, my inner teacher's like, because vulnerability has become such a buzzword that people don't even know what it means, bro. The word vulnerable does not mean to share your deepest, darkest trauma. The word vulnerable means to be open. That's what it means.
So it's not just trauma related.
It's not. There's actually a spectrum of vulnerability, from trauma to truth, from pain to power. It's just as hard for me to talk about my trauma when my mother, threatened me and caused me to suppress. It's just as hard for me to talk about my trauma as it is for me to stand in my truth and say in front of a group of African Americans, like, hey, just because we were victims in slavery doesn't mean we have to keep acting like it. Mm-hmm. Open for attack or praise, for criticism or a standing ovation. Vulnerability is the act of being open. And when you're open, watch this. See this? I can't flow like this. See this? Mm-hmm. Now I can flow. Now I can flow. I'm open. I'm open. Whatever there is for me to say that I feel led to say, I can share it. If my body wants to do a movement, I can do it because I'm so open. I'm not worried about judgment. I'm being in service with all of who I am to the audience. And so what people don't realize is that if they struggle with one end of the spectrum, they often struggle with the other end of the spectrum because it has nothing to do with their trauma or their truth. It has everything to do with their openness. That's the power of vulnerability. Oh, God.
Vulnerability is a spectrum.
Yes.
Safe to say, I am not on the spectrum.
You were waiting to say that the whole time. I know you were.
Well, yeah. After my career in real estate, I'm going to start stand-up, but I need some
do
coaching
it.
now.
I don't know. I'm not great at stand-up. I'm not going to lie to you. The jokes are too intense.
It's just, I think, gosh, you're talking about like vulnerability on spectrum. And
I busted your paradigm a bit at school.
No, it's, I was just thinking you mentioned something is, you say this and some people will give you praise and some people will, I don't know what the word you were saying is.
Criticism.
Like criticism.
Yep.
And, it gets to like, reading the comments on a post, right? You put something out there and just simply put, like people developing the ability not to care, you know, and it's I call it my
to do something when they're hurt from caring.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, it's not about not caring. And when people who say, I don't care what people think, they're lying.
Oh, that's
they're lying to you. You don't care who people you're not actually trying to help think. Yeah. But when you open your heart and you try to help somebody because you're trying to love and you're met with hurt, how do you help people that are hurting you? That's hard. Like you're doing all this content, trying to put good stuff out in the world, and then somebody who's trying to, like, imagine you just like seeing this guy, man, I think this can be really helpful for you. And then he's like, oh man, you're just trying to push your podcast on me. You're like, dang, oh man, that's kind of hurt. Because I really was trying to help.
Yeah.
So people who say that they just full of crap.
I agree.
Okay, cool.
What do you see the most common characteristic in someone that you're helping, you're talking to, you're coaching? Okay. Any type of you, oftentimes them saying, hey, I need help in more a one-on-one setting, or just an audience who tacitly said, I'd love some help, but by showing up. What's the common trait in someone where you go to help them and they act, the help follows, like the improvement follows, they get better, versus the people that you're giving them advice, you're giving coaching, but there seems to be no improvement. They don't take to it.
The people that grow the fastest by me coaching them is the ones that understand that communication is at most, per the research, it's hard. You can say 50%, but most will tell you around 20% verbal communication. Okay. So most people, when they say, I want to become a better speaker, they think about what they're saying. Okay. Please help me. Put the story together, put the right words. And they spend so much time and energy and effort on the literal words that they're saying, as if I gave you a transcript of the I have a dream speech and you read that thing, it would not have the same impact as when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it. Okay. But they think that it's the words. It's not.
What is it?
Traditional communication would say it's nonverbals and your facial expressions, body language. Okay.
Inundating the voice, right?
All that stuff. Yeah. Vocal inflection. I say it's metaphysical. It's your energy. So I'll do this thing every once in a while. I'll tell somebody, okay, I'll give you something to read. I want you to read, it's going to be like a happy statement, like, I love you. But I want you to feel the emotion and the energy of hatred when you say it. I love you. What do you think they heard? Do you feel love?
No.
No, what do you feel?
The hatred.
Did I say the word hatred?
No.
Read my energy.
And is energy effectively a byproduct of convincing yourself and believing what you're saying?
No. Yes. It is a byproduct of your congruence with what you say you believe and how you live it. It is everything to do with your psychology, your mindset, how you live your life. Right? Using the Dr. Martin Luther King example, right? The reason why that I Have a Dream speech was so powerful is because it was baked in the energy of him being grassroots with that movement for so long that when he says, I have a dream, it's like, whoa. His energy is communicating his grassroots effort, not just his speech. And it's still reverberating today for that reason. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what was that, 3 days before he was shot?
I don't know.
Yeah. It was like a day or two. And he said, I've been to the mountaintop and I may not get to the other side with you. It's like he knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And I mean, all that probably, it just created, to your point, the energy with the speech delivered. And it was pretty well written too.
It was. It matters. It's a part of it, but it's not the main thing. So the people that grow the most are the people that are like, I get it. It's how I'm being. It's how I'm living. It's how I feel about the stories that I share. It's about, like, you ever, I don't know if you ever did this. I'll just speak for myself. There's a couple of times in my career, especially early on, where I was teaching the best information I knew. I wasn't teaching my life's practice. And then I heard from like this guy he did a really good speech, and I said, man, tell me about your prep. What did you do? He said, number one, I never teach about anything I don't do in my personal life. So I'm not actually speaking, I'm actually explaining. And I was like, oh, that's good.
That's good.
Oh, that's good. Because up in that point, I was teaching. I was like, okay, let me take the best of my John Maxwell material and make my best leadership speech. Let me take the best of what I heard from the podcast I've been listening to, and let me like say the most potent version of that I can say. I was not saying, okay, you want to be a more effective speaker? What is it that has made me an effective speaker? And then how do I teach you from the depth of my life's practice? Now think about this from the terms of communicators, okay? We say this in leadership that some things are taught and other things are caught, okay? It's easier if somebody were shadowing you in your job to learn how to do what you do than if you just taught them for like 6 months, because they would catch so much more from being around you than they would from listening to you. And so part of what I'm trying to do with people and communicators and leaders is help them to get so much of a depth and clarity of their own process so that they can give people the potency of mentorship without the proximity. Because I'm so clear on what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, what's informing how I'm showing up, that I can now communicate in the realm of what's caught.
I'll have to put a post together on this because I talk about it. I still have to think about like, oh, I have this thing as it relates to commercial real estate, my little field. And actually there's a much broader audience, but so we have formal training here at Matthews University, 60 days, and there's an ongoing mentor-mentee, but it's very structured, it's very formal. It's the taught part. Like we are telling you, this is how you do this, and this is how this is done, and this is these people, and here's this process, and there's value, and they learn. But the best teaching and ultimately the best agents, most of what they learned was caught.
Yep.
And where they do it, and this is what like I got to get our office leaders around the country to kind of buy in, is actually it's kind of messed up, is forcing. I don't want to lose it. There's these private offices. The top agents have the private offices. The newer agents out in the bullpen. It's kind of a traditional format. But I'm always telling the top agents, like, dude, don't sit in your private office. Like, even though you've earned it, you've 100% earned it. Just sit out in the cubes. Go to your manager. Go to your office. Like, hey, I love that. I get this. I actually want to sit out in the cubes.
Yeah.
Because there are mentees, like your team, they are going to learn, develop, grow, and ultimately from a lead generation, generate so much more business for you if they hear you every second of every day. And that's the caught part.
Yep.
I can't 100%. Get anyone to do it. But I tell them, my biggest year in brokerage, the year right before I started Matthews, as the #1 agent globally at the company I was at. I sat in a cube. I mean, I had the biggest office, and it was too much. It was too much people coming in and out. I went to my manager. I said, hey, can I just sit out in the cubes? And I had like 6 people set up who were on my team set up around me. And he's like, are you serious? Like, you want to sit? I was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm tired of them coming in and out. I have so much I have to teach them and walk them through every day that it's just so much more efficient. And it really is true. You learn so much more, in terms of caught than taught. Taught's valuable. Yeah. But the caught part is probably in my industry for sure the biggest part that's missed.
I'll give you something practical too. And the language, I've been doing this for years, but the language I actually got from that office hours experience when I was interviewing Jim Quick, and I was talking to him about his mentorship process. And so I love his language on it, which is you give people the mindset, the motivation, and the methodology. Right. And so like a lot of training materials, especially in corporate, is like it's all the methodology. And it's like maybe a teens of the mindset. Okay. But if you could throw the motivation in there, the mindset in there, the mechanism in there, like it's that 3 core. So if you just went through and went, okay, cool. So it says do this. Okay. Well, what's the mindset around why that's important? Okay. Well, what's the driving motivator for you and why you would execute on that thing at a high level? And now it has that beefed up part of it. You'll find that they'll obey the training more because they're connected to the why. They're getting the mentality. It's not just them trying to conform their behavior without the supplement of their psychology. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So anyways, I thought that would be good for you.
What someone's listening and say, Darryll, it's awesome. I love what you're doing. It's super cool, but I'm not a speech giver. Right. I'm not in a position where I'm giving speeches. Yep. And I'll kind of lead you here. You're like, it's not about speeches, it's about storytelling. And everybody's in the business of storytelling. Everybody.
Yep.
It's how you
I would use the word expression.
Okay.
And I love storytelling. But everybody expresses, right? And the reason I say express is because it makes it more about saying what's on your heart to say than it does about crafting it in any type of formality. When I think storytelling, you got to have a little bit of formality around that.
So short of, let's say 50,000 people, you spending an hour with 50,000 people, what are some practical tips, advice for the audience in becoming better at expressing?
Yes. Nice. Any conflict you have, talk about it. Okay. Conflict. If somebody cut you off in traffic and you were like, had a moment, you're like, oh man, and you just went about your day. Just later that day, talk about it. Just, hey man, I had this feeling, this thing happened to me. There was an emotional spike there. I'll just talk about it. Okay. In marriage, if you're in a relationship, you're going to have times where you're like, man, that was irritating. Oh, that's starting to bug me. And then I don't want to rock the boat. Don't want to rock the boat. Rock the boat. Talk about it. Whatever you don't express, you suppress. Okay. You get inspired, listen to the podcast. You heard some little nuggies. Okay. And you're like, cool. Yeah. Cool. And then you go on and listen to the next podcast and then the next podcast. But you never actually express the things that you learned to anybody else or things that maybe you want to do differently in your life. You just kind of like, I'm just going to consume and not express. You're going to be emotionally fat and overweight.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. Express. That's a great place to start. It's actually where I started. The communication professor that I told you about, Adam Barragato, one of our first assignments was that we had to pay attention to everywhere where we're communicating. And his whole lesson that first week is everybody's a speaker, even if they're not giving a formal speech. Mm-hmm. The only difference between when you speak on stage and when you speak to your friend is that there's lights and kind of an audience that wants specific things for you to talk about. But you're not supposed to become a different person. You're supposed to still share the same stuff that you would share if your friend was just asking you for advice. That's the best speakers. They're the most congruent. They're not teaching manifestation and being broke. They're expressing. Right. So that's a great place to start for people, especially those that are saying that, I am not a public speaker. I'm not going to be on stage. It's cool. You don't have to be, but you have relationships in your life and they're going to take on the depth that you're willing to express. Just about every female that I meet that hears me talk almost always comes up to me and be like, man, I wish my husband could hear this.
For sure. Yeah.
Because men just...
We suppress.
How you doing? Fine, I got this. Just carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And then consequently, you'll hear them like, what's going on with you? What's bothering you? Nothing. I'm fine. We don't even have the vocabulary. I didn't. I had to use an emotional wheel when I was in counseling just to kind of try to figure out how I felt. I didn't have vocabulary. I didn't grow up playing with Barbies. And so I didn't know anything else other than anger and I don't know. I might have had like fear as a word, but I wasn't going to say I was afraid. Mm-mm. So our vocabulary is another place to start. When you're expressing, you might have to use an emotional wheel and go like, hey, what other words might you be feeling on this emotional wheel here other than your predominant, I'm fine, or I'm just taking a lick and keeping on taking, just going through the motions, whatever we say.
You've shared the stage with a lot of hyper successful people across all industries. What has been a common trait about your fellow speakers?
Oh, this is hard because I have a lot of frustration with the industry. I think there's a lot of people that are undervaluing the platform. I think we were caught up in I'm a speaker. I'm on the flyer with 70 other speakers that are great. And we're just missing out on the fact that like when somebody listens to you, they're giving you a portion of their lifespan. Just think about the worldview. If you think light and good and bad, whatever, like the person who has the best narrative wins. Even if it's not the best for the people, if they can communicate it better or get it out to more people, they win. And I think if we started to see this as like, man, we have an opportunity to influence our world with our words. I think they would take their words a little bit more seriously. I think they would take the opportunity to speak into the lives of other people a little bit more seriously. And so like that's part of my gut instinct on that is like, man, there's a lot in the industry I just don't like. I think people are just trying to capture their next clip for social media. I think people who are even well-intentioned are trying to serve, but they're not serving at the highest level because they don't recognize the intensity of the magnitude of the opportunity that we have. And then for the ones that are, and I do enjoy and that are at a high level, I'd say they get that. And that's the part of the game that they get. They get that our world is shaped by the words and the stories that we tell ourselves, and they know that they're a part of shaping that. Like if you just look at the predominant, people who were heard the most on the airlines, on the YouTubes, on the podcasts, they are influencing how people's behaviors are being lived out. And so that's the game we're in. And the people that realize that, they're usually the best.
Last question for you. Give us a resource, give us a class, give us a book other than one you've written. Mm-hmm. But you can recommend those as well.
Yeah. No, I'm fine.
Where someone can learn how to express, learn how to storytell, and ultimately learn how to give us great speech. Because the one I would guess is like Toastmasters, right?
No, God, no.
Yeah.
God, no. In all respect to Toastmasters, but they teach you mechanics and don't even teach you expression. Like
this is good because that's what most people would suggest. So to hear you say that,
I hate to say that.
No.
I did Toastmasters for a little bit, and I was terrible at it. I lost.
So where does someone go to say, "Hey, Darryll, man, I want to learn how to express myself. I want to be expressive. I want to be a great storyteller, so I can get a bunch of clients, so I can get the girl, right?" And I just want to give a great speech.
It's funny because a lot of people do well at teaching that side of it. There's some good storytelling teachers out there for sure, but it's really hard to hold space for a lot of people, right? Like it takes a lot. I'd say the most powerful thing people can do as a like practical step is just like talk to people and then record yourself talking and then watch yourself back, and like you'll see. Oh God, I'm not being me. Okay, you'll see. And if you have an analytical person, then ask them like, hey, what didn't resonate? What felt like it was a tangent? I think that feedback for me has been the thing that has helped me the most in any of my formal training. And I've learned from everybody, Lisa Nichols, Les Brown, John Maxwell, TD Jakes. Like I learned from everybody. And I've learned the most from my wife telling me that there's a bunch of stuff I shouldn't say or doesn't make sense. And then my own watching my film and being like, dude, you show up as a different person because that's not who you really are. To me, those two things have helped me more than any formal training that I've had.
Watching film, are you giving talks?
Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to watch the film. I know, because we see a bunch of stuff we don't like.
Yeah, but that's how you improve.
That's how you improve. It's way faster too.
It's just like football.
Totally.
Somehow if it's easier to watch it in football, it's like it's less awkward.
Totally.
This has been great, Darryll. Thank you so much. Congratulations on all the success. It's funny. It's like you think about speeches. So it's like, well, I don't give speeches, but everybody gives speeches. And so you give a speech to your family at dinner.
Yep, you do.
You give a speech to someone when you ask them out on a date. You give a speech if you're blessed to. You give a speech to hundreds, thousands, millions of people on a stage. But
you do.
Everybody's a speaker. Everybody's a storyteller.
Everybody.
All right, my man. Well, I appreciate it. I really enjoy your story. Congratulations on not just all the success, but overcoming that dark period and the adversity.
Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you, man.
That was great.
Yeah, nice.